The UK's Foreign Secretary has said Russia is in a league of supervillains, together with the Syrian President, who's been blamed for an alleged chemical attack on his own people. The remark comes in the wake of Boris Johnson failing to convince G7 members to put more sanctions on Russia for its support of Damascus. Earlier, RT's Nicky Aaron joined me in the studio to speak on this.
Boris Johnson is known to be a character. We're used to his colourful words, but when it comes to Syria, we're used to sombre words. The desperate and dire situation in the country, and the wording really should reflect that. So that's why a lot of people might be thinking that Boris Johnson, the UK Foreign Secretary's latest comments, are a little bit insensitive. And it's his choice of wording that perhaps gives us a little insight into the black and white way in which he's viewing the situation in Syria. For instance, when asked about the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, a man who has become quite accustomed to criticism, Boris takes it one step further. He describes him as the arch-terrorist. In fact, he calls him toxic. He says that, quote, he is literally and metaphorically toxic. When it comes to Russia, Boris Johnson also warned that the country is playing with a league of supervillains. And RT, this very channel, hasn't escaped this comic book world either. In fact, he described this channel as the dark fountain of propaganda, which sounds incredibly fiendish, and also, I might add, in my opinion, a very good title for a book. So the narrative that's being pushed here by the UK Foreign Secretary is that Russia is working with the villains, and he's calling on Russia desperately to turn to the light side. It sounds a lot like he's trying to describe the plot of Star Wars to a 5-year-old. So anyway, just for fun, let's step into Mr. Johnson's comic book world just for a moment, just for fun. Bear with me on this. Putin and Assad are, of course, the bad guys. They always are, aren't they? And so that would make Mr. Johnson the hero. So let's call him Super Boris for now. And that would make his ally, the US President Donald Trump, I don't know, Captain Make America Great Again? How about this one? The US Congresswoman Maxine Waters. We could call her Wonder Woman. Why? Well, because she just always makes us wonder, wonder how she comes up with all of these outrageous plot lines.
They see Trump as helping them to lift the sanctions so they can drill in the Arctic for the oil that Tillerson negotiated on behalf of Exxon with Putin.
Frankly, on the right and on the left, there are people who are not deep thinkers, who surround themselves with other simple-minded people, who fall victim to the type of, loony theories that many people like to think about.
Now, we can laugh and joke about how Mr. Johnson's comments and Maxine Waters' comments are so outlandish, but they're not the only ones attempting to speak in tabloid headlines, if you like. Here's the UK ambassador to the UN, Matthew Rycroft.
They have chosen the wrong side of history.
In all seriousness, we're talking about Syria. People are continuing to suffer there on a daily basis. So perhaps it's time to pipe down with all this comic book talk and focus on what's really important here.
Well, Boris Johnson's words have inspired the British press to go one step further. Take a look at this. This is an article from daily newspaper The Sun comparing the Russian president to villains from James Bond. As you can see, journalists did their best to find anything in common with the movie's bad guys, a fair few of them Russian, of course. We asked political cartoonist Ted Rall for his take.
Trying to turn Russia and President Putin into some kind of Dr. Evil supervillain is hilarious, especially when you consider that for most of the world, the United States has been far more of a force of destruction than Russia ever could dream of being. We have a very cartoonish style of politics here. It's very black and white. It's 10 or it's 1. It's nothing in between, no shades of gray. And it's not doing us or the world any favors.